Good evening from Vietnam. Good morning to you, Yadi. Thanks a lot for spending your morning to join our program to share your stories and the journey that leading to what you do today. So, and on behalf of the listeners around the world, we want to say thank you to you.
Thank you so much for the invite, huh? And I'm very happy to be here and join your international listeners.
I see you haven't been to our country yet, so it's an invitation. If you and your family decided to travel here, make sure you let us know. We would love to take you and your family out for a cup of coffee, enjoy some foods, meeting some great people over here, and life is beautiful, isn't it?
Absolutely. I look forward to that. I'm from, even though I'm here in Tampa, Florida, in the United States, I'm from Puerto Rico, and I love anything, like with a warm climate. So I look forward to visit very, very soon.
Eh, and this conversation is about you. And I want to say happy belated birthday to you, and also congratulations for writing your book. And we're going to discuss about your book and share that with our audience in this conversation. Okay?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, very happy. Lots of things happening this month.
Now, exciting, exciting. And let's start a little bit. Okay, so because you haven't been to our country yet, so in our culture, it's very honored if we can have you to share a little bit about who Yadi is and the work she do. So would you please do that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm as was mentioning, I'm originally from Puerto Rico, a Caribbean island in the middle of the Caribbean, actually. And then I grew up there, born, raised, and I moved to the United States, to Florida, like many Puerto Ricans do, to go to college to complete my master's there. And I was during the time I was planning to be a journalist. So I did that for a couple of years in terms of entering the journalism world and working particularly in the Hispanic market. I would be always interested in sharing the stories of people and sharing knowledge as well. So after that, it came a career transition to start working as a consultant, and I started working with the U.S. At the Department of Defense at the time in terms of a lot of military organizations. I've been working with in different consulting organizations with military for the past 18 years or so. And my career transition from I'm being always a learner of trying to I get bored easily and I want to do new things and learn new stuff. So I was able to go into the started with communications, and then manager approached me saying, hey, we need somebody to work in the techie with to launch a new application that we have, and we need somebody with a communications background. I never saw myself as a techie, so when I started working with engineers and developers, I found it very fascinating that they were able to create things out of nowhere. So since then, I started working in different roles with alongside the developers and engineers, either helping them to engage with customers, improve processes, and that has transitioned in the past several years to kind of do a lot more coaching with the team. So I started getting involved with different agile practices, meaning that I was able to help them organize, become more productive, and also identify ways that they could better work together. So, and I've been doing that, and I've enjoyed it very much. So back in 2020, we were living in Germany at the time. I've lived in Germany for my family for about 6 years because I was supporting a military organization there, and
Wow.
uh, and I've always had the intent to kind of I've always wanted to go back to journalism. So like yourself and launching the podcast and your venture, I decided to go ahead and launch a the podcast Hardcore Soft Skills, which was I was curious to know what is it that makes people work together effectively? Because I was frustrated to see like a lot of people with so much technical talent, but a lot of times the projects failed. So it came to that part of the soft skills, quote unquote, which is about collaboration, communication. So I started talking with experts about each of the skills. And at the time as well, I started studying it in Harvard organizational psychology because I wanted to be able to understand what makes teams work. And that was 5 years ago. And since then, I've been continuing. And now, with the result of the book that I have here, it's so I'm thinking I'm very excited to share what I have learned, because I've always had this interest in my journalism career to share what I've learned and have applied with the teams I work with. So yeah, a long answer, but yeah, it's in terms of kind of the trajectory of what I have been, a lot of learning along the way.
Beautiful, beautiful. And my wife and I, we created a framework called Newness, and that came out because of a journey of interviewing amazing people, high ranking military officers, professors, scientists, engineers, astronaut, NASA engineers, and through our programs, right? And one thing that behind all these amazing people, for what they do is they're always open for newness. They're open for new ideas. They open to new, trial, new experiment. Like you said earlier, your career is like you move from one to the next, so that it's experience the new thing to see what is else in there that you could do, right? And from journalist to a coach to an author, speaker, it's beautiful. And so before we talk about anything else further, I want to bring you travel time with me a little bit, okay?
Yeah,
How does time travel sound to you?
I love time travel. Let's do it.
Okay. When I was little, I was born in a city called Da Nang City, so in the middle of the country, and it's poor, and it's got devastated because of all the bombs during the wars that happened in Vietnam. So I was born in a very poor family as well, and one night we had electricity. The next night or so, we did not have electricity at all, so it's dark. And my first dream about my future is I want to become an astronaut. I would love to go to the moon and enjoy the bright. Of the moon up there, right? And the life had taken me to a different directions. So for Yadi, when you were little, what was your dream about, the future works that Yadi is going to do?
So yeah, that's interesting because when I was little, I was very introverted. So I kind of, I'm still am, of course, but I was super quiet, and my refuge, I guess, I had a very extroverted sister, and we will hang out, and I had friends through her. But in my house, growing up in Puerto Rico, it was, it was a nice childhood in the sense of hanging with the parents. We had everything we needed, and the situation, there was a kind of a very stable growing up with my parents. My mom was a teacher, my dad was a cop, so it was like very middle class stable family, and it was just at the time, I was very bored at times because we didn't have cable or internet, growing up in the early 90s. So it was, my mom would buy magazines or the newspaper. So I was always an avid reader of things because I was bored. So I've always wanted to kind of do something related to either writing. I didn't have necessarily like, big dreams as you in terms of being an astronaut. I was just kind of like going with I was a good student, reading and doing kind of doing the right thing. And even as I went to college, I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted to do. I went to the university in the metropolitan area, and I started studying philosophy, which was just to kind of continuing. I've always liked studies and learning, and then I was always interested in communications in the sense of the kind of radio, because growing up with the radio, and I love hearing stories of people. So I've always been wanting to do something related to communications. And my world expanded a bit more once I decided to go to to the States to study. So getting out of Puerto Rico, back at 2021, I decided to go to the US, and that kind of like opened my eyes of all the possibilities of what I could do with my career, or kind of like through journalism, I discovered all the things that people were doing, business, entrepreneurship, and others. So I think that's when I decided to kind of like do a little bit more in terms of, like I said, from journalism, continue growing and learning. And I must say that it's up more recently in the sense that I've been kind of wanting the hunger to do more, to kind of venture more into entrepreneurship, of the possibilities that are out there. I've been listening to a lot of and following creators in businesses and entrepreneurs. And now in my 40s is kind of like what I'm starting now a new career path in terms of venturing and the ambition of wanting to have making hard course of skills like a platform that it's normalizes the education of soft skills around the world. So I think the fact that growing up in a childhood, I didn't really have necessarily big dreams. It was coming and getting out of my comfort zone in the US and having to force myself to speak to people and having to force myself to kind of engage with others because as an introvert, if I didn't talk to people, I didn't have a story as a journalist. So I needed to talk to people. So it was more in my 20s along those lines and discovering very recently that all the possibilities that are out there. So I must say it's never too late. Like even if I, there's always time to pursue the dreams like you are doing in terms of where life can take you.
Wow, wow. Since you mentioned that, I want to ask you about your idea in terms of newness. Also, as an introverted person, I bet that when you went to the US, it's a big country with a lot of people with a lot of opportunities, and you've been navigating that giant world, like with possibilities in the mindset of newness. It's strange, it's scary also. So if you rewind you to your life, right, and you look back at how that newness thinking, that newness mindset has helped you, and to become who you are today, and share with us a little bit of that, would you?
Yeah. So in terms of I, as I mentioned, I'm an avid learner, and particularly even after when I became a mother to almost 13 years ago as well. So there's something that kind of also kind of clicked on me as well of all the possibilities that I want to create for my children in terms of what future they want to have, all the possibilities that are out there in the world. So since as you mentioned, I came to the US and started studying and in journalism, meeting people and seeing all the possibilities that are out there, getting out of my comfort zone to enter into a whole new industry, working with the Department of Defense there and meeting a lot of people that were doing great things around the world and the opportunity to travel and see the world. I think it's keeping that sense of curiosity and willingness to learn is what makes life interesting and what also makes us kind of provide value to others too. So as you continue learning and growing, you share with others and you kind of is that's what as society makes us grow together. So I've been trying to keep that sense of newness in the everyday, and particularly through the eyes of the children, as you have kids as well, that it's that they ask questions and they make you think of new things. So I see right now there's a lot of different possibilities out there, and the possibility with right now with internet, AI, and the media that the mediums that we have as well. Creating those relationships is critical, and me meeting you that are all in Vietnam and here in the States, that's just it's fascinating. So I think it is important for us to make a deliberate effort to keep that sense of newness, either in whatever we do at work, meeting new people, in our everyday lives as we discover content and good resources. So I think that should be driving our day to day as we continue.
A lot of people want that newness, but it's scary even because of that scary, so they couldn't make the move. So how do you deal with that fear, to push you outside of your comfort zone?
Yeah, and that's a very important question, particularly now, because we are being forced to adapt, particularly in the workplace, that it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm good here, with the things I know, like as I experienced with a lot of colleagues that were in the workplace that all of a sudden what they thought was secure like a government job it's not secure anymore. So it is important, and that's a skill too, the adaptability and dealing with change. It's first to understand that, not resist it, understand like, okay, change is coming, it's things are going to happen, and identify that there are other people that perhaps have going through that change or are doing the thing that you are you know, that you're expected to do. So it's like, okay, it's not something completely new. Even during COVID, hey, we survived the being at home for an extended period of time. So there's the understanding that other people have done that particular change, and also understanding it's a time to do a good self-assessment to understand what are my skills, what are the things that I can bring into this new situation. If there's a change of your role or a change of place as moving to a new country, it is important to understand what skills do I have, what can I bring to the table, and after you identify what you have identified, what do I need, who do I need to call, who can help me navigate this thing. Like, for example, for me and my family, moving to Germany was a shock for us, but we had the opportunity to have a community of people that have done the thing, have moved to Germany, and that we were able to call and be like, how do how do you recycle? How do you do like the basic little things? How do you find a new place to live? Like all these things that there are people willing to help you navigate and support groups. So I think it's part of understanding what's the skills you have that you can bring to the new situation, and then identifying what's my support group or support resources that I can leverage to make the change easier to digest. And also, and lastly, just being able to kind of embrace the change, because doing the same thing, there's all the possibilities. So kind of keeping a, without sounding too, woo woo, it's like, it's just a keeping a positive outlook. What could happen? You never know in terms of your own experience as well. The adventure where life has taken you, it could be very surprising. So yeah, those are things that we could do to deal with change.
So that little girl, Yadi, when she was little, did you think that one day she's gonna travel the world, like different country, different continents like that?
Um, Not really. I was interested in when I remember clearly reading when I was little the newspaper in Puerto Rico, and reading about the discovered countries. There was the Gulf War happening at the time, and I was reading, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this, but I'm just going to keep reading about what's happening in the world. So just being, I didn't really thought that I could be working alongside those people that are, in the military, making big decisions and doing big things. So that was surprising. I never imagined that. And
Uh,
also, and the ability to kind of work or live elsewhere. So not really. And I think it has been I knew I wanted to do good things, but I didn't really have a clear picture. And even right now, I'm like, hey, 10 years from now, things could be very different. So I'm opening to the possibility of meeting new people, and kind of spreading the message of what I have to offer in terms of the importance of soft skills at work. So yeah, I'm very excited about the future too.
how about writing a book? She loves writing when she was little. And when you was little, did you ever imagine one day that you're gonna, become an author yourself?
That part I was kind of I was dreaming about, like, for example,
Ah,
when, yeah, because I was just reading, going back to that newspaper in Puerto Rico that I was reading. I'm thinking, oh, it would be cool to have my column in a newspaper or things like that. And when I joined, when I went to school, and years later when I started my career, seeing the name in the byline, I'm like, oh, this is cool, this is a story and it has my name on it. And now just continuing, I've always enjoyed writing and researching and reading. So I think that part I just didn't imagine necessarily like the particular topics that I will write about. I always knew I wanted to be a writer one day, and being able to share stories.
so for the book, the idea of writing the book appear first before the podcast, or the podcast appear first, then the book, come after.
So the podcast definitely first, because
Ah,
I wanted to interview people, and I have been podcast was I started listening with like 2013, 14, which was not as extremely popular as it is right now. And but podcast for me became a form of, I listen to a lot of podcasts from Puerto Ricans, and being able to kind of keep close to home, and also to learn, like listening to, like, back then Tim Ferriss having one of the, yeah, like one of the first popular podcasters out there. So I always like either radio or um, my preferred way of learning is by listening. So I've always been a fan, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe one day. So when COVID came in, that it's kind of the realization of like, hey, anything could happen. It is now or never. So I took a free course in podcasting. I had some experience on editing when I was doing radio. And I decided to like, hey, let me call authors that I know and kind of reaching for, the well-known authors and others. I'm like, let me reach out to them, and they will respond because I guess they were not, it was COVID time, so they were available. So I've been able to speak with authors like David Allen, John Carter, or for change management, like people that were. I created an inventory of what are all the soft skills. Like I came up with like 80 different soft skills of like negotiation or other things. So I decided to contact the authors, and they responded, and just having a 30-minute conversation with them in between like working kids, and all that stuff. So that came first, and I've been continuing doing that, and it's always very fascinating to hear the stories from other people. And then came the idea of like I want to put all this knowledge together because I was looking for a guide that so I wish the book I wish I had in as I join a new team or as I join a new organization and how to make it succeed. That's when I created a 5 C's framework of all these skills. How do we adapt a way to learn it together as a team? And I came up with like connecting skills, then communication, collaboration or creation, and then correcting, which is the part of evaluating how things are going. So that's why I put together the lessons from guests, some research, and my experience as well in putting in the book to kind of, and I still think that I left out a lot probably, and I'm like, oh, I need to do this for the next new version or a different version. So I'm still planning to do more revised editions in the future, or books that are specific to specific skills.
Beautiful. And earlier in this conversation, you mentioned that you got frustration to see, like the tech engineers and like people in the tech that has difficulties, collaborating, working with each other. That curiosity, did that come before the podcast, or is a result of the podcast?
It came before, and that was the
Okay.
driver to do the podcast, because it was a lot of the times, as well as that perception that is the technical folks that have the difficulty, and a lot of times is the managers have a lot of difficulty communicating with the teams, and at times when they would come to me and say, "Hey, fix them," and it was more an approach of ending up like, let me coach the manager or coach the people that are in charge, let's say. So that, because it was just simple issues, like for example, that people could relate to, like the ability to resolve conflict, that they would see either no conflict because things were fine, which is not the case. Conflict is good, and changing that perception from people like, no, 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 conflict is good. You can discuss vividly an idea, but we also need to have a kind of a framework to be able to decide as a team when conflict arises, how do we address it? Do we have a safe space for that? How can we have good conversations about it without people getting, angry? So also in terms of engaging with the customers, not seeing the customer as a, quote unquote, oh, this people just don't get it. This users is like, no, let's empathize with them. Let's figure out a way. Let's have a framework for this to identify how do we, evaluate, communicate with the users, spend a day in the life in the user so we can develop better products. And I've captured some lessons that I learned from either developers, like some of the best developers I work with have those kind of approaches to truly understand the user, or either managers who were able to motivate the team, not because they had like great speeches, but because they were able to leverage the expertise of each team member. So there's so many things that could be learned about, and we are all the perception that these are skills that are, natural, that just you either born a communicator or not. That's not necessarily the case. We can all have these skills, particularly like learn how to negotiate. That was such an eye-opening for me, because it's realizing like it's not the person that comes in the room and put the fist down and it's the person that's going to win. There's a whole preparation for that. So there's all these skills that we see as we're either an extrovert and natural. Those we can all learn the skills. We'll be better in some cases than others, but as a team, we need to figure out ways to learn them together so we can have better results.
Wow. And since when in that journey that you realize, oh, you have enough data, you have enough, like what it takes to start writing a book about that, Yadi?
Well, that's one. I think that's one of my weaknesses is that I never think I have enough, and then I end up cramming so much. I'm like, no, maybe I need to take a step back and simplify. So I think in the book, I cover about there's 27 chapters, and I cover all different like 27 skills just to be able to kind of it's meant to be a introduction to each one of those skills, like how to do in terms of for creativity. I have some exercises for teams on how to have a good brainstorming session, like simple rules to do a good brainstorming session. Or for communication, it's like, hey, here are some tips and exercises you can do to learn how to listen better, and just like making tiny changes is what the book is about of. And if you want to continue learning, then you can continue learning as well with multiple resources and having the podcast. So I think I may want to cover too much, and I could definitely, each one of the chapters could be its own book in terms of the how deep we want to go with each. But the intention here was to serve as, here's a big guide, here are is the framework. When you join a team, before you go into telling people what to do, you need to connect with those people. You need to be able to meet them, understand where everybody's coming from. And then you go into the communication aspect, which is just establishing, for example, a team contract where you decide as a team, here's how we're going to work, here's how we're going to communicate, here are our roles. There could be so much time saved if the team just decide to do a team kind of guidelines or contracts. It is super effective and avoids a lot of bad conflict. Then moving into exercises, there's so many ways that teams can collaborate together, remote teams especially. And the last part of taking the deliberate effort as a team, that we go on the day to day and we don't correct things until things have gone bad. So making a deliberate effort to, like, hey, let's do a retrospective. Let's think how things are going, improve. So those are the best practices that high performing teams do.
Can you show you in the book so that I can take a screenshot to share with our
Yeah.
audience, please?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you raise it a little bit up because we raise the book a little bit up?
Oh, yes.
Yay! Okay, second. I I you can name the book at any names, right? And I think that the book is like your third baby besides your two sons, right? You name it like a guide to work with humans. Okay, why did you decide to name the book like that?
Yeah, so particularly in this AI age that everything is changing because of the changing workplaces and the technology. Even with that, there's a lot of times that we focus a lot on the processes, and we focus a lot of how to do the thing, or getting the job done. And we forget that we are working with other people that have interests, other people that have knowledge, other people that also are passionate about the work. And we're so focused at times between like the best optimized processes that it we forget that every working environment, it's like developing relationships with people. When we go to workplaces and we think like we're part of a team, and we may not even know the names of some other coworkers, or what motivates them. So I think even myself, that has been a lesson that I've had to learn through my career, realizing like when I get to develop those relationships with the people, it's when the best results come out. Recently, I was my role was to lead a transformation effort across in a military organization. And the part that people walked away with that they were happy about was realizing that I was kind of forcing people to kind of just meet each other and say like, hey, this for the project managers who did this thing that you have to respond to or develop. It's like, oh, there's a requirements person over there. Have you met that person? No. Well, let's go and meet them. And then kind of like through working with that person, they realized that they could improve many things just because they had a good conversation. So I think it's those things that we forget, that we just need to develop relationships with people. These are not, as we call it in organizations, butts on seats. These are people that are like, that have an interest to work together and make things better. So that's why it was I called it the guide to work with humans, because we all need a guide to work effectively with others. Relationships are never easy.
You mentioned the word forget, right? Uh, we are all humans being, and if we forget how to connect, work with other humans. How possible is it that we're gonna lose the part, a human's part of us, if we don't remember all of those skills?
Yeah, and I believe that is why there's such a, we need to make a deliberate effort on that. And even looking at the reports, there's multiple reports of like the skills that are needed for the workplace. And it's surprising to see like, hey, collaborate with others alongside like, I don't know, data literacy. There's like collaborate with others as skills. And like it's surprising that we have to call those out. Like, hey, you're going to work with people, you have to learn to collaborate. That because of the fact that we're in such a society driven by technology, or even when we have meetings that are virtual, and we don't see the faces of the people, or people communicating without necessarily talking face to face. I think there is a possibility that people, as people, we tend to forget that there are people behind the keyboards, and that's why it becomes very important that developing human connection, seeing people, going to events, talking face to face is critical. And I think even though these are not the measures of some organizations that are not so popular, of like, let's have everybody at work and come in and work together, there is some reason to that, in the sense that when you have people in a room, you may not need to have them all day every day, and but at least when you have people in a room working together, it's kind of magical things could happen too. So you could do it virtually, of course, but there's the fact about just talking face to face, either virtually as you and I are doing, or also just the ability to work with others without making it all part of a machine. I think it's something that we possibly could be forgetting if we don't make a deliberate effort for that. So I think there's a big need to remember that.
Yadi, in terms of the 27 skills that you mentioned in the book, right? Is that universal, applied to all countries and culture, or is it specifically for the people in the US only, you think?
No, it is applied to everywhere, for anywhere that you have humans. Now, I understanding that there are things that could apply in terms of the cultural shifts of, that a relationship, for example, in some countries, like the bureaucracy and the hierarchy could be more delineated than in other countries. It's still, I think, applicable to it's applicable to everybody. There are cultural nuances that could be considered in the practice part of the how to make improve on that skill depending on the workplace. But overall, those skills are skills that are needed for everybody. Emotional conflict resolution, dealing with emotions, how to negotiate, even though the techniques for negotiation could vary from one place to the other. The ability to just, hey, prepare before a negotiation, come up with an alternative to that negotiation. Those steps are pretty much universal.
Earlier today, I saw your video about the 5C frameworks, right? So I think I will put that link to for our audience to watch that video. I'm not gonna ask you the question related to that, but I'm gonna ask you, if I ask you to pick a chapter, or one skill out of 27 you want to
Mhm.
share with our audience in this conversation. I know the question is not fair. Pick one and tell us what it is. Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I'm looking in the book, I'm like, because I want to answer and then I'm going to forget, because I think all of them are very important. But there are a couple that I think are very relevant today, which is listening, for example, the ability to listen effectively. I've learned techniques that have not only been great for work, but have also been great for marriage, like being able to pause, listen, repeat back to the person what they're saying, like what I think I'm hearing is blah. It saves so much time, and it shows that we are, truly understanding the person. So listening is a skill, and it requires some steps that definitely could save so much time and effort. I think the dealing with change, as we were talking earlier, is very important to develop a skill, because it's sometimes people mention, like, change is coming, you just have to put up with it. It's like, no, there's this skill set that you need to develop. There are ways, even in big organizations, there are specific steps. Like when I talk with John Cotter, who's kind of like the authority on change management, there's the steps. You first need to communicate the change. You first need to gather people that are like super excited about the change, so in order for change to stick. So the same with ourselves when we're working with small teams, or just for personal changes too, is important. And also, I think a third one would be conflict management, not necessarily conflict resolution, but that's certainly a skill that needs to be developed in the workplace, or even how we deal with it on a personal basis with our significant others or with friends, because we see that we tend to name people like conflict seekers, or think that conflict is bad, and if there's no conflict, things are well, and that's very incorrect. The great teams are able to manage conflict. And in workplaces, we need to establish the rules of how we're going to manage it, the opportunity that it's safe to express differing ideas, because that's how we innovate. So I think those three, I could mention so many more, but listening, adapting to change, and the ability to resolve conflict either with people that we don't necessarily agree with, is just allows us to, move on, improve our own lives as well, because working in a conflicted workplace is just so stressful, and it impacts our personal lives too. So those three, I would say, that are very important today, and I could mention much more, but at least those three. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those three: listening, adapting to change, and resolve conflicts, right? And writing is rewarding experience. Also, is a for days is also like you heard what like torturing sometimes, because when so how
Yes.
do you keep uh the results of ideas continuing to flow as during the process of writing, Yadi?
Ooh, that was a tough one, because it's not like I necessarily had like full time to work on it. My writing a book, and I've always, not that I work under pressure, but I like time boxes, and that's a technique I use in terms of, like, I don't want to do the thing, but let me set up a specific time frame that I'm just going to sit down and write. So my time will have to be early in the day before everybody wakes up, like the kids, and then dealing with the work throughout the day. So having, at least I had a clear idea at the beginning, and since before, like putting myself in the book, like realizing like this is how I would want it to look like. It's not a fiction book that you have to have the narrative, so you have like at least this shorter chapter. So I kind of have each chapter is like its own essay. So I'm like treating it by chunks initially, and like, okay, today I'm gonna write about conflict resolution, have this, and have the exercises. So I kept it in a way that was succinct because of my lifestyle, to be able to write a book like that. But also critical was I had a writing buddy, that he and I will keep each other accountable of, like, okay, each day, let's see, he was doing writing his novel, and I was writing my book, and I'm like, we will message like, how many words do you have today, and keeping kind of, I don't want to let my body down, so I want to be able to keep writing. So having that accountability of a person that will make you accountable, and having that really discipline of imagining, like, okay, the book, I want it to be at a specific time. I don't want it to make it perfect. I want it to just put the message out there, and I want to be able to think that this is a minimum viable product. Later on, I can iterate. So I was thinking, if not, I would have been stuck with making the perfect book. And I'm like, this is the good enough. I think there's a lot of good knowledge that I have there. I could have more. So kind of having that mindset is what helped me kind of get through. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the universe is having this beauty today. Earlier today, I share. on LinkedIn about a post about, don't wait for a perfect moment, because every moment is perfect itself already, right? Like
Hmm.
now you share, like you think it's ready to make it a minimum viable product, right? And when your idea is there, it's good, then you just send it to the world, and there will be the second one, there will be the third one, there will be
Exactly.
more to come, right? Congratulations. So for our audience, if they want to connect with you, learn from you, what is the best way for them to connect with Yadi?
Well, definitely LinkedIn, because I'm on LinkedIn, and when I message people, it's not AI messaging people. Like I at least say a hello to every single person that I connect with. So LinkedIn, you can find me, and also in my website, you're gonna find all the podcast episodes, resources, and all the information I put there. And the website is hardcoresoftskillspodcast.com, where you find all the information and also information about upcoming courses. Because I have a LinkedIn course, a very short LinkedIn course on persuasion. Also, information about the webinars that I'm going to start like giving throughout the year, just to address topics of the book. Because I want to be able to engage with folks, and also being able to learn from people as well. Like, what techniques do they use to improve on each skill? So, hardcoresoftskillspodcast.com or LinkedIn as well.
I have a few last questions for this conversation, okay? My wife and I, we've been on the quest to help people to improve their ability to think. It's like you want to help people to improve, the soft skills so that they can work, with humans, right? So we specifically think that our thinking these days is diminishing, and there's a lot of things that impact in it, and we want to bring back the capacity for us to improve our ability to think. And one of the best way for us to do is to ask, those experts who join our show, like you write books to help people to improve skill. You talk to a lot of amazing people. So if you look at your whole journey, right, and share with us, how have you been growing your ability to think, Yadi?
I think is a aside from being a consumer, of I've read so many books and podcasts. I think what really helps us becoming better thinkers is by sharing what we know. Like, I learn about something, either I could write about the thing and write a good post or a good article, and that could help me think through the ideas, or also teaching that to others. So when we learn something, either if we do, let's say, a small lunch and learn at work, or it's definitely a way to help us think, because we're digesting the information, we're going in, and not necessarily depending on AI specifically. Because I was talking in the podcast with an AI neuroscientist, and she was describing too that it's we even though AI can make our life easier for so many things, and we use it all the time, taking the deliberate time to, like, okay, I learned something, instead of asking AI about doing a summary, let me do a think myself first and do a summary about the thing. So this is writing or sharing is thinking, and we need to take the time. I know we're trying to optimize, save time, and do all these things, but by digesting and sharing the information with others is the way that I think that we will be able to think better. And I think that's what definitely helped me with writing the book, or even when I do the solo podcast episodes where I share information. It's the way that I'm able to truly learn from all the information that we get every day.
Wonderful, wonderful. I promise my speaking coach I'm gonna ask a bizarre question in every conversation. Okay, so let's travel time with me uh, to meet you when you were little. Okay, when you were reading those magazine, and thinking one day you wish you gonna have a column in those article, those magazine. Now the Yadi of 2026 enter to that room with me and sit next to that little Yadi in the living room when she holding like the magazine on her hands, right?
Mhm.
And you're gonna tell her about her future. You're gonna tell her about the exciting things that you've been doing to that little young girl. So what is that you're gonna tell her?
Well, that's interesting, because I will tell her that she will be able to lose the fear to interact with other people, like that fear of, what are other people thinking, or others tell her like, no, you're gonna lose that fear. Sometimes it might not be easy, but it is by getting out there that and talking to people and realize that there's a lot of people that are either just like her, or that think that are thinking same things, or that she could learn a lot from. I think that just that girl it's that there could be many possibilities, and even no matter the age, that even if she thinks that by 20 something she has to have things figured out, it's like, no, 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 life is gonna be a constant journey of learning and embracing, and you set your own limitations. And I think that she will be able to kind of surpass her own imagination on the possibilities that are out there. So yeah, certainly I will tell her that.
And what would she say to you?
um I think she will trust me. She'll say like, "Okay, all right, that sounds." I don't know how, but like, but
Figure it
and
out.
that part of losing the fear is like, okay, no, that's interesting. So I think she will believe. It's just not see the full, picture, but I think she will believe the future me.
Beautiful. The last question, okay? And I have to put something into that. I want to travel to the future. We can travel the past. We talk about the present already. Let's talk about the future to make it complete, right? Uh, because you have a very beautiful journey of doing different things, from journalist to communication expert, talk to being the coach, now writing. So I'm curious. This year, what is the one skill, the main skill that Yadi is investing time to master, that she wants to share with our audience? Maybe somebody listening will have the same desire to improve that skill. So, what would that be?
Yeah, I think, because I would say a couple, definitely, even though I consider myself a good networker in terms of building relationships, I want to continue building on that skill of networking and building relationships with others, like around the world, like yourself, or people in different fields, to truly build good relationships like that, that we are able to share and learn from each other. Because I think as I continue to want to grow hardcore soft skills, like either through sharing the message through the book, through the podcast, doing workshops, that I want to continue growing that message, that it is important to practice deliberately these skills and make better workplaces. I think it will be very important to continue practicing the ability to build new relationships and have like meaningful relationships as well, not just like collecting connections on LinkedIn. It's just being able to like, hey, we have our relationships that we can call around the world, and call in Vietnam, hey, I'm here, and then we're visiting, we have dinner. So yeah, I think that's continuing building that skill is what will be critical this year.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hey, Yari, I want to say thank you for spending your morning to join our program. You are our first interview for 2026, and this is a
Awesome.
beautiful conversation. And it's a signal that it's a sign that we're gonna meet in person one day soon, right? So
Yes.
I really look forward to that one day that you call me and you say, "Hey, hi, I'm in Vietnam with my two sons and my husband, and maybe some friends also." And Vivian and I will be so delighted to to come and give you guys big hugs and maybe take you guys to show different things in our city. And congratulations on the book. I believe that in the age of AI at the moment, there's a lot of people relying on, like that technologies for answerings. And eventually, if we're not managing our skills well, then we're going to lose the part as humans, like how to connect, how to relate to one another. And And your work is important to help us to regain those things so we can create better work environment, collaboration, friendship, partnerships, and bring more smiles, more joy to work and to home, right? So I want to say thank you for doing that. I wish you all the best in 2026 and many more years to come. I wish the book be a successful one. And I want to say, send our love and kiss to your family. And please do that for us.
Thank you so much, Ha, and I appreciate the time and the thoughtful questions. So this was very fun. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day. And I'll let you know when we are launching this podcast next week. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye, Yadi.
Bye bye.